Alright, so I did decide to go back and add a little bit of curls. I didn't want to add too much noise to the final 3D pranks. I know it's only going to be, I think if the cake is 8 inches tall in the top, you're only going to do it like a width of 7, and then the height will be whatever that is. And it's, since these guys are kind of vertical standing next to each other, it did end up being, they ended up being about 6 inches tall, which isn't tiny, but, we're not even printing with like super high accuracy. And I am going to have to, sand it down and clean it up a little bit. So a lot of that detail end up getting lost. So I don't want to spend an inordinate amount of time on something that's not going to be seen necessarily, or if it is going to be seen, and then after cleanup and sanding, it's just going to turn into kind of wobbly noise. That's not ideal. But I don't do this very often, so I figured, oh well, let's give it a shot, and it'll make it a little bit more curly. And my fiance's hair is very, very curly, so... and not curly like this, like she's got super coily curly hair. This is more like relaxed curls, but man, I really didn't want to figure out how to do stylized curly hair. If I was going to do that, I would probably do a bunch of curly insert mesh brushes and then just do that. And even, I always tell myself when I'm doing this kind of hair, it'll be faster to sculpt it. And it almost, I don't know, by the end... I end up losing time just during the cleanup phase because I can't clean pieces individually and layer them nicely. It takes a lot of work to get it sculpted correctly. So even this style of hair, I would probably just create a bunch of those clay insert mesh brushes, maybe would bring it in with some creases, and then just layer them up as pieces, individual pieces. Maybe I'll do a tutorial about that later, and just keep them all separate. I can have them as separate polygroups or separate subtools or both. I can have them as separate polygroups at first and move them around individually and then split them up into polygroups, group split, and then merge them all back together. And then at that point, I could Dynamesh it to get an envelope once it's all really nice. It just allows you more freedom, and it's a little bit longer setup, but a lot higher quality at the end. And I don't know, for me, it's like I end up eating the time up front to kind of set it up with all those little clay coils. But the end and the polish and the end result's actually a lot nicer and faster to get to. Whereas sculpting it in starts out fast because you can just clay build up and polish. And then once you try and start to like, well, that didn't quite work. And then, I need to move this strand out. And in order to tuck this strand in, I'm going to melt the strands next to it, or I'm going to have to mask and blah, blah, blah. And it ends up being a pain. Now, if you do sculpt it 100% correct, like if you get your primary forms in there and they're perfect, and then you just build on that with your secondary forms, and then build on that with your tertiary forms, or your details, it'll probably be fine. I can count on 0 fingers the number of times I've been able to do that with hair, but I don't sculpt hair a lot, so that's probably a big part of the reason why that hasn't happened yet. But even still, even if I was to plan it out perfectly, if I did want to make changes, having them separate would even be easier for iteration or feedback, or like I said, iterating on the final look. And all it is really is just adding more of the techniques that we just did. This is why I'm speeding it up. I didn't want to have you guys sit through me doing 30 minutes worth of H polish. It wasn't exciting for me to do. It'd probably be really horrible watching me do it. But it is just Damien Standard, clay polish, or I'm sorry, H polish, clay buildup or clay tubes, and then Damien Standard holding down Alt to build up the ridges, and then using, if it's high enough res, I'll usually just end up using clay brush instead of clay buildup. Like I said, I think in the other video, if you turn down your stroke curve step, you can make your clay brush smooth out a little bit. It won't stutter in between the alpha. And of course you can save all these. If you do come up with a cool brush combo that's great for certain styles of hair, just save it out and then throw it up in your hairbrush. Call it like stylized sculpt hairbrush folder. No, don't call it that. That's a dumb name, but you know what I mean. Save it out, use it again, get good at it. Like I said, I don't do this that much. I think maybe I've sculpted 2-3 stylized hairs in my day. And really, always remember your final result. If this is going to be a 6-inch cake topper, printed at medium quality, that I'm going to have to sand later, probably this is overkill. But I don't know. It didn't, and it also didn't take that long to do. Like I said, I think I took 30 minutes and put it down into like 5.5 minutes. So just so you can kind of see the process and I don't bore you to death more so than I have already. And of course have your lazy radius up. And this is where I'm getting into the kind of thing where it's like, if this was just a separate piece, I could coil it around and then duplicate it off and then swirl that one around. And if I wanted to do really tight curls, I could just do an insert mesh brush with tight curls and get a better look for that type of curl as opposed to trying to sculpt that in, which would be not that fun.